Hello and welcome to the world of Nail Alliance. My name is Marie Strauch. I am the educator with your new school. Today's webinar is going to be on the ProHesion acrylic system in both odorless and traditional. Our mission statement at Nail Alliance is to provide the salon industry with all the tools needed to help make salon businesses even more successful with the latest and greatest in nail products. Establish opportunity for learning through proper education and training courses domestically and internationally. Create superiority within the industry as the go-to nail manufacturer for state-of-the-art products proven to perform to the best of standards while upholding the motto, done right from the start. And to understand the needs of the salon industry. As nail professionals ourselves, we have a clear understanding of the industry and demand for the highest quality products and services possible, which is why quality has and will always be our #1 priority. So who is Nail Alliance? We are the Gelish Soak-Off Gel Polishes, Gelish Hard Gels, Morgan Taylor Nail Polish, Bare Luxury Manicure Pedicure Products, Nail Harmony, ProHesion, and more. So like I said, today's webinar is going to be on the ProHesion acrylic system. The nice thing about ProHesion is that we're pretty innovative. You get to use either the odorless or the traditional monomer with the same polymers. So what that means is that you get to use the same powders and just switch out your liquids based on if you want to use traditional or odorless. Both are self-leveling and easy to use. The first thing we're going to talk about is creating the perfect bead. So with a liquid and powder application, one of the main contributions to a successful application is product ratio and creating the correct bead. With the ProHesion system, our ratio is 2:1. This means 2 parts liquid to 1 part powder. And that's going to create a medium wet bead that is very easy to work, move, and control. There's 3 ratios that you could potentially be working with. You've got the 2 wet ratio, the 2 dry, and the correct 2:1 ratio. So first, let's talk about the 2 wet ratio. And this is going to produce a bead that is hard to control, resulting in an increased risk of skin contact. There's also going to be uncured monomer trapped inside the nail. So too many monomers reacting with too few polymers will result in a completed nail that's too flexible and brittle, as well as drastically increasing the chance of product sensitivity. Plus, you'll have reduced longevity and adhesion. And that bead looks like it is just dripping off of the tip of your brush. And when you go to place this bead onto the nail, it self-levels too quickly and starts to pool near the cuticle or the nail groove, which can cause that product sensitivity. Now, there is a need for a wet bead. It's just not building an enhancement. If you are going to be doing marbling designs with colored acrylic, that's when you're going to want to work with a wet bead. But I recommend creating your enhancement first and then doing a very small, thin, wet bead to create your designs on top of your enhancement that's already been built. The next ratio, the 2 dry ratio. This will produce a bead that is very difficult to move. It's probably not going to move at all. It'll probably fall off of your brush or roll off of the nail. The durability of this nail is also affected. This time, the nail is going to be less flexible with increased brittleness, reduced longevity, and decreased adhesion. And this bead looks like an orange peel. It's not smooth. You'll still see some unpolymerized polymer on the bead. Not ideal to be building with. But if you are going to do 3-dimensional designs, like creating flower petals or leaves, then you're going to want to work with a dry bead. However, you also need a 3D acrylic nail art brush to achieve those designs using a standard 7, 9, or 8, or even a 10 acrylic brush. They hold too much liquid and you won't be able to create those 3-dimensional designs. They're just too large of a brush. So you do need the right brush and then the dry bead to create those designs. The correct ratio. This will produce a firm yet creamy, movable bead. It's going to give you perfect clarity, strength, and durability. And this bead should look like a pearl sitting on the tip of your brush. So clarity, working too wet or too dry, as well as affecting the finished strength of the nail, will also affect the clarity of your finished nail. Even if you're working with the correct 2-to-1 ratio, clarity can be affected if correct application techniques are not followed. The 2-wet ratio. This can leave the nail cloudy, even after the product has been pressed into place. There's also an increased risk of having air bubbles in your application. The 2-dry ratio, this is also going to leave the nail cloudy, but it's a different kind of cloudiness. It's more grainy or speckled looking, and that's due to uncured polymers trapped inside the nail. So too many polymers, unpolymerized polymers are kind of just hanging around inside the nail waiting for something to join it. The correct ratio. That will give you perfect clarity once you press the product into place. If the product is just moved into place, like you're just shoving it into place and you're not pressing it to compact or compress, it's going to increase your chances of a cloudy finish. And then by pressing and compacting, that also helps to eliminate air bubbles in your enhancement if you have any. Next is the temperature. Your working temperature can greatly affect the quality of your bead. If it's too warm in the room, this is going to speed up the polymerization and evaporation of your product, giving you a reduced working time. In this situation, you want to work slightly wetter, a more 2.5-to-1 ratio to increase the work time. If it's too cold in the room, this slows down the polymerization and evaporation of the product, increasing your work time. The increased work time will also increase your chances of overworking the product, which can lead to air bubbles in your finished enhancement. So in this situation, you want to work slightly drier, a more 1.5-to-1 ratio. Ideally, you want to be anywhere from 70 to 72 degrees. Even 73 is okay, 68, 69 is okay, but ideally 70 to 72 is perfect. Creating that perfect bead. So the first thing you want to do is fill your dampen dish with your choice of liquids, whether it's traditional or odorless. You want to be able to submerge your brush fully. You want to condition your brush by removing any trapped air that's inside the brush. And to do that, you're going to dip your brush into your liquid, allow the bristles to bend so that they can be fully saturated, and then wipe the brush out fully on the side of your dampen dish. And you want to do that about 2 to 3 times. Once you don't see any air bubbles floating to the surface, then you know your brush is conditioned. To get the correct amount of liquid in your brush, for your bead, you want to dip your brush into your liquid, allow the bristles to bend, and then gently wipe the very tip of the brush against the glass dampen dish to remove any excess liquid. That's the correct amount of liquid for a medium to large size bead. For smaller beads, you're going to wipe and drain more of your brush. For larger beads, you're going to wipe and drain less of your brush. To pick up your powder, you want to angle your brush at a 45-degree angle and press one side of the tip of your brush into your powder. You're going to do 5 to 6 presses for a large bead, 4 to 5 for a medium, and 2 to 3 for a small bead. You want to use multiple small presses to pick up your chosen bead rather than one large drag or press through your powder. This helps to create a creamy but firm bead that's really easy to press and move into place. Before you place that bead onto the nail, you do want to wait a few seconds for the bead to begin to settle and firm. If you're using elegant pink or crystal clear, the bead will change from a grainy surface to a smooth surface, like a pearl. If you're using vivid white or studio cover warm or cool pink, the bead goes from a textured surface to a smooth surface. And again, once it's smooth and looks like a pearl, then it's ready to be placed. If you feel that you need to control the amount of liquid being injected into the bead, you can quickly bleed the back of the brush onto a towel before you place it onto the nail. Brush angles. So we're going to work with a 10-degree angle for the free edge and a 45-degree angle for the stress and cuticle area. This allows us to correctly structure the nail with our brush, resulting in minimal filing that you will have to do. If you work too flat with your brush, this can result in a nail that's too flat, meaning you'll have to go back in, apply more product to create the shape that you need for structure and support. Learning the correct amount of product takes time, but it is going to make your job a lot easier. If you use too much product and you create a nail that's too thick, this means excessive filing and possibly too much vibration from having to use too coarse of a file at a speed to remove that bulk, especially if you have to pull out your e-file. This vibration can cause microfractures in the nail, weakening the overall composition and structure of the enhancement. And having to do too much filing has its own set of problems. Wrist and shoulder pain, maybe can lead to repetitive strain injury, as well as having excessive dust in your breathe zone. If you've used an e-file before, you know that they produce a lot of dust. So we want to minimize all of that. Now, if you end up using too little product and creating a nail that's too thin, this is also going to lead to breakage because there's no support for the extension edge. There's also a chance of breakage on the nail bed itself because, again, we didn't create any support for the stress area. So the first thing you want to do prior to doing an artificial nail enhancement, and regardless if it's acrylic, hard gels, poly gel, soft gels, gel polish, or the dip system, any one of those are considered artificial nail services. The first thing you want to do is a dry manicure. You're going to sanitize your hands and your client's hands. If they're wearing polish, remove their polish. File and shape the natural nail with a 180 grit file. Push back the cuticle with your cuticle pushers. Second step is to choose your method. So what are you going to do? Are you gluing tips on? Are you doing an acrylic overlay over natural nails? Are you doing sculptured nails over natural nails? Once you've chosen your method, you'll gently buff the surface of the nail to remove the surface shine. You'll remove that dust and dehydrate the nail using nail surface cleanse with a lint-free wipe. If you are applying tips, you'll do that at this time. And then after applying, filing, and shaping your tips, you're going to remove that dust and dehydrate the nail again with nail surface cleanse and a lint-free wipe. Then you'll apply your pH bond to further dehydrate the nail plate. And then you'll apply your ProBond acid-free primer. So first we're going to talk about using the traditional monomer. You're going to create your first bead of acrylic. This bead will be applied to the tip of the nail. You'll hold the brush at a 10-degree angle, gently pat the product from sidewall to sidewall. Using the tip of your brush will help you sculpt the product into the shape that you desire, especially if you're doing sculptured nails. You'll apply your second bead of acrylic to the midsection of the nail. You'll hold the brush at a 45-degree angle, pat the product from sidewall to sidewall using the body of the brush, and then gently brush the product over the nail to blend in the direction of the free edge. You'll apply your third bead of acrylic close to the cuticle area, holding your brush at a 45-degree angle. Pat the product from sidewall to sidewall. Be sure the product is thin near the cuticle, yet not touching the skin or the cuticle. Brush the product over the nail, allow it to harden or cure, and then begin your finish filing and shaping. You'll remove the dust and apply polish if desired. If no polish is desired, let's say you did pink and whites, you can finish your enhancement using the dual coat acrylic nail sealer. Now, if you're choosing to use odorless, your application steps are the same as the traditional. The only difference is with odorless is it has a slower drying time, so it gives you a little more working time with it. The bead self-levels a lot faster than traditional monomer, which means you could potentially overwork the product a little bit. I tend to work with odorless on a more 1.5, 1 3/4 to 1 ratio because it does hold a lot more liquid in self-levels. So I like to work with less liquid when using odorless. But my application is still the same. I'm still going to do my 3 bead method after I've applied the acrylic. Because it has a slower drying time, you want to wait about 1 minute to 1.5 minutes for the enhancement to air dry. Odorless systems also have a inhibition layer. They kind of feel tacky to the touch. They almost feel like they've never fully cured. And then when you go and file that, it crumbles and it sticks to your nail file. So what we like to do is add a layer of your secure adhesive resin or nail secure resin, which is also our nail glue. This is what we use to glue our tips on. The resin, once it dries, and you want to let that dry for a minute, it creates a really nice hard shell over the odorless system. So when you go and file it, it files just like a traditional. You're not going to get anything crumbly. It's not going to be sticky. It feels just like a traditional. So then you'll file and shape like you normally would and proceed to your finishing steps. So let's just do a quick recap. Here's a ProHesion one color tip overlay. So follow your prep steps, do your dry manicure, size and glue your tips, blend your tips into the natural nail. If you're using the French white tips, don't blend out the smile line, just remove the surface shine off of the tip. If you're doing active length nails, this is what I would consider active length. You can do a 2-bead method. So you'll apply your first bead where the natural nail and the tip join. This is going to be your arc placement as well as your free edge application. You're going to press the bead from either side to distribute and gently pull forward to cover the tip area, leaving the bulk near that seam. Using the belly of the brush, you'll press and smooth and distribute the product over the entire nail. You'll apply your second bead of acrylic about 1/8 of an inch away from the cuticle area. That's going to give you room to taper the product onto the nail plate into the cuticle area with less chances of the product getting onto the skin. You'll continue to pat, press, and blend towards your free edge. Once it's reached its correct set point, you do have the option to pinch in a C-curve. You could either use your thumb, C-curve sticks, or pinching tweezers. It's up to you. You don't have to pinch a C-curve if you don't want to. When you're pinching in a C-curve, you want to hold your pinch for about 30 seconds to allow the product to firm up or polymerize and stop the tipping force from pinching open. You also need to kind of wait for that sweet spot. So after you've applied the acrylic, you want to wait about 30 to 40 seconds, let it firm up a bit, and then you can give it a good pinch. What I like to do when I'm doing sculptured nails is I will apply my acrylic to one nail. As soon as I'm done applying that acrylic, I put my form on the second finger. By the time I size and get that form on, that first finger is ready to be pinched. And I just repeat that if I'm doing sculptured nails. And once it's fully hardened, then you can proceed to your finish filing. For your finish filing, we recommend that you start with the 150 grit file, further refine with the 180, and then begin smoothing and shining using your buffers, working from low to high. If you wish, you can buff with oil. This can be applied a small amount. And then you can continue buffing and use the Eco Shiner. The Eco Shiner buffer is going to create a beautiful high shine satin finish. You're going to begin with the green side to further smooth the nail. The nail again should look like satin at this point. If there are scratches still visible in the nail at this point, you will have to go back to your previous steps and do more work, gradually getting those scratch marks out using your buffers. And then you can go back to using the Eco Shiner to bring the nail back to a high shine finish. For sculptured pink and whites, you're going to still follow your same prep steps, do your dry manicure, apply your forms, make sure that they're not tilted too far up or too far down. You also want to try to make sure that the tabs on your forms line up. That helps to ensure a nice even C-curve. When you're ready to begin, you'll place your vivid white onto the form about 1/8 of an inch away from the natural nail. This will give the product room to move when you begin to press it into place. If you place the white overlapping the nail, your smile line ends up being too far down. You'll hold your brush at the correct angle, press once in the middle to spread the product. This is going to establish the center point of your smile line. You're going to begin to press up to the smile line that you want to create and out towards the nail groove. Keep the bulk of the product in the center of the nail. And then once you reach the nail groove, you're going to push the product back up to create your lower arc and repeat that on the opposite side. Clean up the free edge of the nail, then quickly press from side to side to smooth the nail and evenly distribute any excess product towards the center of the spine of the nail. This will help create a smooth, even concave and convex. Then to refine your smile line, you're going to turn your brush so that the bristles are facing towards you, and you'll gently tuck in and wipe the smile line to sharpen and smooth it. You'll finish by smoothing the surface to help remove any air pockets that may show during finishing. And then using a small dry bead of your vivid white, you're going to place this tiny bead exactly where you want the point of your smile line to go and blend that into the previous application. Allow the product to firm and then turn the brush to face you and then tuck in and wipe to smooth and refine the point of your smile line, and repeat that on the opposite side. For your pink, you're going to place your elegant pink 1/4 of an inch away from the smile line onto the nail plate. If you place it against the white, there is the possibility of having air bubbles get trapped between the pink and the white. Using your brush at the correct angle, you're going to press once in the center to spread the bead, press from side to side, and then blend towards the free edge. Repeat on the opposite side for blending. And for your final bead of acrylic, again, we're going to place this bead 1/8 of an inch away from the cuticle, giving you that taper room so that you don't get the product onto the skin or on the cuticle. Continue to pat and press and blend towards your free edge. Again, once it reaches its correct set point, remove your form, pinch in your C-curve. Again, you could either use your thumb, C-curve sticks, or pinching tweezers. Once it's fully hardened, then you're ready for your finish filing. Again, starting with the 150, working your way to your 180, and then begin buffing using your buffers from low to high. Now, if you are going to finish your enhancements with gel polish, you want to stop buffing at the 180. Anything higher than a 180 grit buffer creates too smooth of a surface, and your gel polish will not adhere properly and it will peel off. So know what you're finishing with so you know which buffer to end with. For more information on Nail Alliance products, you would contact the account executives at your new school. And then for future webinars, you can contact myself, and there's my contact information. We're going to flip my camera on, and we will do a hands-on. Let me get my camera switched on. There we go. Okay, so I've already glued a tip on to save us some time. So we have a tip that's already been glued on, and then we have a shorter nail. So we'll do a tip application and a sculptured application. Ideally, I like to use the sticker forms, and these are the tabs that you want to line up when you're pinching them together. I love forms. I love that you can cut these to shape to fit any nail that walks or hand that walks in the door. However, these don't stick to my mannequin hand, so I'll be using a reusable form. I'm not a fan of reusable forms. They're great if you're in a pinch, but for the mannequin hand, they work just fine. I don't like using reusable ones because you can't custom fit these for every client. So it's the only reason why I don't use reusable ones. And I've already dispensed my odorless and my traditional. I'll be using the Hand and Nail Harmony 9 oval. So the first thing you're going to need also is a orange wood stick. This is what I use to clean my brush. Cuticle pusher, files. So I've got my 150, my 180. The 180 is a 180 400. I like to use the 400 for natural nails. And then my 100 180 buffer. I am going to be finishing with gel polish, so I am not going to go any higher than the 180. When you're using brand new files and buffers, just kind of take them and score the edges so that they're not too sharp on both sides. Same with the buffer, just kind of score those edges because they can be very sharp. All right, so we are going to grab our cuticle pusher. We're going to push back our cuticles after you've sanitized your hands and your client's hands. If they had any polish on, remove their polish. Well, this nail's already done. File and shape the natural nail using your 100-180 grit buffer. You're going to buff the surface of the nail gently to remove the surface shine. Once you've glued tips on, at this point, you're going to cleanse the nail with nail surface cleanse and a lint-free wipe to get the dust off. After you've gotten the dust off, this is when you will glue your tips on using your resin. After gluing your tips on, you're going to blend. I like to use my 180, and then I blend the tip into the natural nail. Make sure you remove the surface shine off of the tip, and then cleanse the nail with nail surface cleanse and a lint-free wipe again to remove the dust. I'm going to lower my light just a bit. I feel like that's really bright. There we go. Then we're going to further dehydrate with our pH bond. And we'll apply our ProBond acid-free primer to the natural nail. And we're going to start with odorless. Odorless does take a little longer to firm up. So since we have to let that dry a bit, we will start with our odorless. And we'll just do a clear overlay. So I've transferred my powders into smaller containers. I just use these smaller ones for the mannequin. But make sure you're following your state regulations when it comes to dispensing product. If you cannot dispense out of the container, then have extra dampened dishes so that you can dispense accordingly and dispose of according to your state regulations. So for my mannequin, I always just have this powder and liquid is what I use for just the mannequin. So I fill my dampened dish at the beginning of the week, and I use the same monomer on the mannequin throughout the week. For my clients, however, I don't do that. I don't store monomer. I like to use these smaller dampened dishes for clients. I only dispense what I need, and at the end, I dispose of it. But for the mannequin, we're not going to be wasteful. All right, so we're going to start with odorless. First thing we want to do is condition our brush. If you've never used a brush before, it's brand new, you want to make sure that when you receive your brush, the bristles are going to be really stiff. There's going to be like a starchy coating. Just take your fingernail and kind of separate the bristles to soften them up, and then take a lint-free wipe with nail surface cleanse and cleanse and get that starchy powder off. That's for packaging so that the bristles stay nice. And then once that's clean, then you can condition your brush. And you'll dip into your liquid, allow the bristles to bend, and then you probably can't see it on camera, but there's tiny little air bubbles floating to the surface. And then you'll just drain your brush, and you'll do that about 2 to 3 times until you don't see any bubbles floating to the surface. And your brush is now conditioned. So we're ready to begin. So again, I'm using the odorless. Again, it does self-level fairly quickly. So the correct amount of liquid for a medium to large size bead is you dip your brush into your liquid and you drain the very tip. For odorless, I just drain a little extra. Then you're going to angle your brush at a 45-degree angle, and you're going to do multiple small presses to pick up your chosen bead. When it looks like a pearl, you'll place that bead onto the free edge. I like to wipe my brush, and when I wipe my brush, I'm wiping it in one direction. I'm not swirling it. I don't want to fray my bristles. Now you'll see the odorless has self-leveled all on its own. I'm just going to gently push that, and with my brush at a 10-degree angle, just going to pat the product to distribute that. and wipe my brush. Now, odorless, because it does hold a lot more liquid and it self-levels, try not to have their finger pointing down. Keep their finger pretty level with odorless because you don't want the product to pool too much near the free edge and create a really thick free edge. And you want to be light-handed with odorless. You don't want to be pushing down too hard and flattening out your bead too much. So again, we're going to drain just a little extra, angle your brush at a 45-degree angle, do multiple small presses to pick up the bead, wait for that bead to go from textured to smooth. With your brush at a 45-degree angle, we're going to place that bead on the midsection of the nail, drain some of that brush, let the bead self-level a bit. With my brush at a 45-degree angle, I'm just going to gently pat the product because I don't want to lose my arc. And I'm going to gently blend towards my free edge. Dip my brush in. I'm going to drain more of my brush this time because I don't need as large of a bead. Wait for that bead to go from grainy to smooth. I've got my brush at a 45-degree angle, 1/8 of an inch away from that cuticle. And with my brush at that 45-degree angle, I'm gently patting the product, getting it closer to the cuticle without touching the cuticle. And then we're just going to gently blend. So now this has to sit for about 1 minute to 1.5 minutes for the product to air dry. And we need to put the nail secure resin. I'm just kind of patting and smoothing that out. So while this sits for about 1.5 minutes before I can put my resin on. If I put my resin on right now, I'm going to end up with brush strokes in my enhancement, and I'll also end up with acrylic stuck to the nylon brush. So we want to avoid that. So we're going to let that sit for 1 minute. While that's sitting, since I'm only doing one nail, I'll show you how I clean my brush. So once I've done all 10 fingers, I dip my brush into my liquid, I drain, I take an orange wood stick, and I gently separate the bristles. All I'm doing is spreading them out just to make sure I don't have any product built up in between these bristles. And then I'm going to place the brush between my paper towel, and I'm going to squeegee out any excess liquid from my brush, reshape my brush. And when I store my brush, you either want to store it laying flat or bristles pointing down. So for me, I have an overhead light and this just hangs above my head, bristles pointing down. Don't get in the habit of throwing them in cup holders. Bristles pointing up. There's still monomer that is inside between the ferrule and the bristles. There's adhesive that holds your bristles in place. The monomer over time can eat away at that adhesive and you end up losing bristles. Once you start losing bristles, you have to get a new brush. So if you want your brush to last a long time, bristles pointing down or laying flat. Now, if you have a brush that has a cap, so here's another one of my brushes that has a cap. So I can just cap my brush and then I throw it in my cup holder because the bristles are pointing down. The cap is protecting the brush. Then I can throw this in a cup holder. That one does go in a cup holder. This one hangs above my head. Now, when you're cleaning your brush, it is so important that you're not gouging out any product. If you did get product built up in your brush, invest in brush cleaner so that you can clean the bristles. I will show you a brush that was not cleaned properly. And you can see the difference between the tips of my brush. And if I push this to the side or turn it to the side, you should be able to see a bunch of broken bristles because my daughter got acrylic built up in there and she was just pushing down with the orange wood stick trying to gouge out the acrylic, and it broke all the bristles. So don't do this to your brush. All right, it's been about a minute. Let's take our resin. So right now, if you were to touch the top of your odorless system, it should feel tacky. It kind of reminds me of those little glue dots, I guess is what they're called, that they use, when you get junk mail and you get the credit card in the mail and they're stuck to the paper with that little glue dot. That's kind of what it feels like. So that's how you know if you have an odorless system, if it feels tacky. So we're just going to use our resin. We're going to do just a thin coat. Once this resin dries, it's going to create a really nice, hard, smooth surface. And then when we go to file, it files just like a traditional. So while that dries, let's get our form on and we'll do our pink and white. I'm also not a fan of these reusable ones because they don't get a good C curve, but that's okay. We're going to pinch one in anyway. So we're going to grab our traditional. I'm going to grab my white. Ooh, I got a lot of air bubbles coming to the surface. So that means I did a good job drying out my bristles. I see glitter in my monomer. Or that could just be at the bottom of the dish. Well, we'll find out. Looks like somebody was in my office. All right, so we're going to dip into our liquid. Since I am using traditional, we're going to follow the 2-to-1 ratio, drain the very tip of the brush, angle your brush at a 45-degree angle, multiple small presses to pick up your bead, wait for the bead to go from texture to smooth like a pearl. Place that 1/8 of an inch away from the natural nail onto the form. With your brush at a 10-degree angle, press once in the center. Press until you reach the nail groove, and then push up to create your lower arc. That's way too long. Let's shorten this. And try to make it the same length as that one. Flip your brush so that the bristles are facing you, and you're going to do a tuck and wipe to create your smile line that you want to create. And then smooth it out. So now we want to further accentuate this smile line. So I'm going to pick up a small dry bead of my vivid white, and I'm going to place it in each of these corners to bring this smile line down a bit. And the reason why we're doing a dry bead is because I'm using a large brush. It holds a lot of liquid. So we're going to drain as much of this brush. We're going to pick up just a tiny little bead, super tiny, place that bead right where you want the point of your smile line to go. And it's already, the moment I go in with my brush, the brush is applying too much liquid. So I need to bring that down a bit. And we're going to smooth that in. And we'll just further accentuate our smile line. So this little bead isn't really much of support or structure. It's just to really give an exaggerated smile line. Now you don't have to do this if you are satisfied with your smile line. I just wanted to bring that down and give it a little more exaggeration. So we're going to drain, pick up another tiny bead, place that right at the point of where you want that smile line to go. And then smooth it out because you don't want any air pockets either. And then once you're satisfied with your bead or your smile line, we can move on to our pink. Grab our pink. Just making sure I don't have any white powder in my pink. Wait for it to go from textured to smooth. Place this bead 1/4 of an inch away from the white. With my brush at a 45-degree angle, I'm going to gently pat the product and sandwich it into the white, keeping that brush at that 45-degree angle. Now I'm going to change my brush to that 10-degree angle, and I'm just going to gently smooth the pink into the white. Eighth of an inch away from the cuticle. With your brush at a 45-degree angle, you're going to press once in the center to spread the bead. Keeping your brush at that 45 so that you get a nice taper near the cuticle. Now, if you do get too close to the cuticle or the nail groove, don't use your brush to clean up the product off of the skin because you don't want to get any monomer on their skin. Use an orange wood stick to do your cleanup. So if you did get too close, just use an orange wood stick and clean up where you need to clean up. I'm just looking at my nail from the side. I'm going to build up just a little bit right here. That looks too flat for my liking. I just want a little extra. I'm going to quickly clean my brush. At this point out, I should be putting a form on the second finger. While I'm putting the form on my second finger, it's giving that pink and white a little bit of time to firm up before I pinch in a C curve. I'm going to remove my form. And I gouged out I got a little dent. I'm going to fill in that little dent. Another reason why I like sticker forms better. We're going to wait a couple of seconds, give that a little time to firm up. And I'll pinch in. Now you can use C-curve sticks, pinching tweezers. I like to use my thumbs because I don't lose them. They're always with me. So you're just going to pinch in your C-curve. And now you have to hold it for about 30 seconds. So you want to do just a few seconds to really just give that a pinch. And then we'll let that continue to firm up. So while that's hardening, we will start our finish filing on our odorless system. So we're going to start with the 150. On a client, I like to pinch their finger just to pull the skin away from the nail groove so that I'm not cutting them. Using my 150, I'm going to go right into the side, into their nail groove, and gently keep that file nice and straight and file the nail groove. File free edge. Round that corner out a bit. When you're doing the cuticle area, now you can always use an e-file if that's the route you want to go, but we're going to do hand filing today. For that cuticle area, it should be nice and tapered. You shouldn't have to do too much filing near the cuticle. So I just like to do small little etches, just gentle. You don't want to be too aggressive on the cuticle or the nail groove area. And then I'm going to come down the sides. Rounding that out. On the opposite side. And when I'm filing, I'm just kind of keeping my file more rounded. I'm curving my wrist. I'm not sawing back and forth. I don't want to create any flat spots. I want my nail to be nice and I want curves. For my free edge, I like to angle my file at a 45-degree angle and come downward to give a nice taper towards that free edge. And then I also check the barrel. So I'm always looking down the nail to make sure I'm not too thick or too thin on one side. So once you've done pretty much the perimeter of the nail, all that's left is the surface of the nail. So now we're just going to, again, rock your file so that you're not creating any flat spots. And this one is ready. So I'm just going to continue with my 150 onto the next finger. Oh, this one's a bit longer, but that's okay. So gentle near the cuticle. Free edge. And smooth out the top. Don't crack your client's finger off. They won't appreciate that. I'm trying to get these to be as close as possible. All right, we're going to switch to our 180 to finish smoothing. Continue to get those scratch marks out. I don't know why these don't want to stay on, or at least this one doesn't. I may have to hold it in place. And then we're gonna buff. So like I said, I'm gonna be finishing with gel polish for my enhancement. I'm not gonna be using regular polish or the dual coat. You can use dual coat. Dual coat again this is great for pink and whites. It's just a thicker viscosity top coat. It's an air dry product. I have no patience for things that air dry, which is why I don't use it. It's why I always use gel polish, because I love that you just put it in your LED light and there's no smudging. And your clients are ready to go as soon as you're done polishing. So I always use gel. I don't know why this is not staying on this finger. Be gentle. So I am going to finish with gel. So I'm going to stop at my 180. At this point, you're going to have your clients go and wash their hands to get all of the dust off. So they will be at a sink at some point or somewhere using a scrub brush to get all the dust off. Now, even though they went and scrubbed their hands to go get the dust off, still take a lint-free wipe with nail surface cleanse and cleanse their nail when they come back to your station, so that, because you know they're touching their fingers or their hair or their face, getting some oils on when they're walking back to your station. So just make sure that you get all those oils off. Any dust, I'm going to fold this so that we don't get any dust in my polish. So we're going to polish our overlay with gel polish. You don't need to use your foundation, which is the base coat. The foundation base coat is for the adhesion of gel polish to the natural nail. Well, the natural nail is no longer exposed, so we can just go in with our polish. Make sure that you still cap your free edge. And we're going to give this a 30-second cure. I'm going to let me take the bottom of my light off. And we'll set that to 30 seconds, and we'll give that a 30-second cure. This is the Gelish Pro LED light. This lamp is replacing the 545. So if you have the 545, that's being discontinued, and this is our newest lamp. It has a 30-second and a 60-second cycle, and you can use this for gel polish and hard gels. And it is super lightweight. I mean, this lamp is feather light. Do our second coat. What color am I using? I'm using Make 'em Squirm. This was the 2020 fall collection. Can't tell if that turned on. There we go. And then we'll finish both with the Top It Off top coat. And then cleanse the nail to remove the inhibition layer and finish with nourishing oil. So nourishing oil is really important, just as important as the dry manicure. So let's talk a little bit about that while this is curing. The reason why we do a dry manicure is we don't want to add any moisture to the natural nail prior to putting an artificial enhancement over it. Your nails are like kitchen sponges. So think of a kitchen sponge. It gets wet, it absorbs liquid, you do your dishes, you wring out the sponge, and then that sponge sits out and dries overnight. As that sponge is drying out, it starts to shrink. Your nails do the same thing. So your nails, so this is the C curve of your nail. Your nail goes in water and your C curve expands. if we soak our nails prior to putting acrylic over it, acrylic is not flexible. So we've now put acrylic over a natural nail that we've expanded the C curve. When they leave, their nail is going to start to dehydrate. And over time, and it's not going to happen right away, but over time, it's going to want to go back to its natural C curve, and it's going to start pulling away from the acrylic, which is what's going to cause lifting. Or you'll get where like the free edge of the nail, as it grows out, it starts to pull away from the artificial enhancement. So if we keep and do a dry manicure and keep their C curve as natural as possible and put the acrylic on, when they do wash their hands and their hands get wet, the nail can't expand. So they're going to get less lifting. And nourishing oil or cuticle oil also helps in preventing that expanding of the natural nail, because water and oil don't mix. So by putting cuticle oil on and telling your clients to regularly put cuticle oil on, the oil is going to be protecting the nail and preventing it from absorbing any extra liquid. So they're going to get less expanding and shrinking, and they're going to have beautiful enhancements that will last and get less lifting, and they'll have beautiful enhancements. So there you have it. So we have our odorless overlay, our pink and white sculptured nail. And that concludes our webinar for today. Again, if you have any questions regarding Nail Alliance products, please contact the account executives at your new school. And then for future webinars, please feel free to reach out to me anytime. Thank you and have a great day. Bye-bye.